From 809 Restaurant and Lounge on Dyckman Street in the heart of Inwood in New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air, where we shine a light on the writers, filmmakers, musicians, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. I'm Aaron Sims.
And I'm Jonathan Bell.
And this is Live and Local. It's our podcast dedicated to showcasing and celebrating the musicians of Upper Manhattan. We talk about their work and, best of all, hear them do their thing. Who is our guest today, Jonathan?
Aaron, today, Live and Local welcomes Miguel Tejada. Miguel began his musical life as a classical pianist, studying under the famed Cuban teacher Hilda Melis Gras in his hometown of Santiago in the Dominican Republic. While still in his youth and already an accomplished pianist, Miguel's attention turned to jazz. In 2007, he was awarded a full scholarship to Boston's Berklee College of Music, where he studied jazz composition and arrangement with Joanne Brackeen. Since then, he's played with many jazz luminaries, and his compositions have been praised for their masterful use of salsa, merengue, boleros, samba, and Western classical music, all within a jazz framework that prizes improvisation, ingenuity, invention, spontaneity. His Rembeando received the National Music Prize, awarded by the Dominican Republic's Ministry of Culture. It's a thrill to have him here with us today on Live and Local.
And here he is, Miguel Tejada. Miguel, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. And welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. First, will you tell us the names of the two compositions you just played?
Sure. Thank you, guys, for the invitation. Jonathan, Aaron, and the great team that you have in here. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you. So the first song I played, it's called Andrea, which is like influenced by the waltz, by the European waltz and Caribbean waltzes. And the second one, it's Countdown by John Coltrane, a set of variations that I improvised there.
Well, to be honest with you, Miguel, it's kind of hard for me to know where to start because of just all of the worlds that seem to be covered in your playing. My mind was going to Brazil, to Poland, Chopin, Chopin-esque
that's right.
moments, Ravel, the Caribbean, the American Songbook, Bill Evans types of voicings. It's just a lot to take in, but it's a very unique voice you have. Is there something that you can say along those lines about how you have taken so many threads to create a voice such as the one you have?
Jonathan, that's very flattering. But let me tell you, I think that everything at the end of the day came kind of like organic, in an organic way. As you mentioned, I started as a classical pianist, right? So I was playing Chopin, as you mentioned, Ravel, all that, Beethoven. So then I decided to explore jazz, improvisation, and all these colors, these voicings, that freedom that jazz gives you. So, and because I'm from the Caribbean, I think that I started to heard all these melodies, notes, rhythms together, and I started to realize that, well, I should take advantage of my classical background and not just play jazz in a traditional way and try to use my left hand more, sort of a more rhythmic approach and also melodic approach there, and trying to say something that kind of like belong to everybody. If I go to Europe, maybe they will feel like, oh, that sounds like the first song sounds like a European waltz sometimes. But in a sense, I wanted something that sounded like from everywhere. It could be from anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, being true to my roots and the things that I was learning along the way.
That transition from classical to your own voice in jazz, did that have something to do with moving from Santiago to Boston in 2007?
I started to learn jazz way back. I just loved the music, and I remember a friend of mine that put these records of Keith Jarrett singing, while playing. Wah, la, 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 la. It was like, what is this? But I realized that he was a classical trained guy, a musician. So I started to realize that, well, I might try to do this. I didn't know how to improvise, but definitely after this scholarship I was granted in Boston, Berklee, I was totally hooked. And the teachers there just showed me what this language was really, about.
I couldn't help noticing, and maybe Jonathan, you can say this as well, is when you actually play, your voice comes out through your fingers, and yet you can see your mouth moving and your whole body speaking. So it's wonderful to see that the keyboard is just an extension of you as the instrument.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what quote my voice is. Just trying different things, trying to mix it up. But at the same time, there is something that definitely speaks, in my mind. Like, you already know this, you already trained in these ways. You love musicians like Bill Evans, for example. I love saxophone players, Coltrane, Charlie Parker, And the voice, actually, the actual voice helps to connect while you play these lines. And again, more organic way. It's not so much thinking, it's more like feeling, it's more like singing. Actually, when you see singers, they are so relaxed, because they just play or sing from the heart. So that's what I'm trying also to do when I play.
And the phrasing.
And the phrasing, and try to listen to every note.
Yeah.
That's something important in jazz.
I want to pick up a little bit on Keith Jarrett because he's a real long form improviser. And one of the things that I thought about, especially in the first piece, but with Chopin in particular, I was thinking of the Polonaise Fantasy, some of his longer, and also, I don't know if you're familiar with the Schumann C major
Absolutely.
fantasy. Okay,
Absolutely.
so I kept thinking of the fantasy form, the long form fantasy form, and I was like, that's how I would describe a little bit how you structure your pieces. To me, the form is really where a lot of your, as well as the left hand, like the activity of your left hand, the counterpoint, but the form is like really where I hear the classical influence, and that's exciting because you don't get that longer narrative type form in jazz very often. So that's really refreshing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Sometimes in some compositions in jazz tend to be very well structured, right? This is the melody. There's like a break or something that allows you to understand that, okay, the melody just finished. Now there's soloing. And then after that, the melody, the written melody comes out. So also form and structure, it's very wide and open in classical music. So that's another, let's say, influence that I might have, but also you might find it in other artists like Keith Jarrett, for example. Sure. He plays standards like All the Things You Are or Autumn Leaves, but also he has these free improvisations, which are like, feels like sonata fantasy-like.
That's right.
So it's like, okay, I'll open with this and then something else will come out. Oh, nice. That's cool. Let me just develop that. And then something else comes out and then, you just go with the flow.
Well, Miguel, you have talked about so many influences that have affected you, and including the teachers you had at Berklee. You yourself teach, is that right? So can you talk about a little bit what you've learned musically or otherwise from those teachers and influences? And given our current state of affairs, what are you trying to instill in your students now and pass on to them?
That's a very good question, especially because jazz, it's more oral tradition. It's not so much about books. You learn from others. And to me, I got to say that that's what brought me to the States, to America, is the way that all these traditions, classical music, African music, and also Americana music, get together and just create one single style that we call jazz nowadays. So with Joanne Brackeen, for example, at Berklee, I remember I was in her class just trying to ask her some questions like, oh, how can I play with rhythms that are not so common, like odd meters? We call it odd meters. And she said like, oh, just play it. What do you mean just play? I need to understand it. No. Listen to me. And she played, and I was listening. I wasn't understanding anything. But what she wanted me to do, it's like, don't think so much. You're having too many thoughts. Just try to open your ears and open to the moment, what is happening, and try to feel the groove, in your whole body. So that definitely affects me in the sense that it was a very different approach. So I'm pretty much trying to instill that organic way of teaching, listening, and playing to my students also. Like, what do you want to play? What do you want to learn? The other day I was teaching a student about bebop, and I was like, try to hear, black people in Harlem back in the days, like this grandpa in the corner, he was talking like, hey, it's like a way to talk, to speak. That's bebop. So that's how Dizzy Gillespie explain it, that bebop is an actual way to express, to talk for Black American, some particular Black American people.
Aaron, we'd like, I know, to hear some more.
Absolutely.
Music. So my understanding is that you've got a couple more pieces for us.
Absolutely, yeah. So the third song is going to be Rembeando, which is the song granted National Award of Music in the art. That was my first award for a jazz composition, so it's like something that inspires me a lot to keep writing and doing stuff like that. And the last one, it's called Entre Copas, which is like between drinks, when you are standing with a partner, just having a couple of drinks. Yeah. So it's very romantic in that sense.
Once again, Miguel Tejada. Miguel, that was marvelous.
Thank you.
Again, a lot of things to think about. I think I'll ask you something about the through composed quality of your music, given your background in classical music as well as jazz. What comes through to me is this sort of a meticulous quality of your compositions. Every note seems to have its purpose, its place. It's where it needs to be in a classical sense, but there are also these spaces which allow you to be free in terms of how you improvise. And I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how you do that.
Well, playing just by yourself is different than playing with a trio. You can take more licenses. So yeah, absolutely. Once I have the written music and I, learn as the best I can, I try to create spaces where I can improvise just freely, or at least in a way that is not as confining as the traditional setting would be. And those spaces help me to do different things every time. So it's more fun, right? So imagine now it's different. We have this COVID reality, right? But any given night I will play something, and then if you come back the next night, I will do something that is totally different, and in the same place or in different places. So that's something that I would love to keep exploring. Just writing some music, but creating more spaces to create more spaces. Does it make sense? In a live setting, there is so much you can communicate, and involve your audience. And that's why those moments are more magical.
Well, I certainly really have taken to the way you pull together the training as a classical pianist. I heard you warming up with hand and exercises,
Right.
That tickled me a little bit to hear that, And so there's this kind of perfectionism that you have as a classical pianist, and also your yearning to find those places where you can do something different in different performances. Really, really cool stuff. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you guys for the invitation and the opportunity to play some music and just to be connected with the community, the artists, and also the audience that I know you have.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Where actually can our listeners go to hear you and purchase your music and follow your projects?
You can follow me, Miguel Tejada Jazz, on Instagram, and migueltejadajazz.com. You can find me there. I upload videos from time to time, just to be connected with people, and announcing some events that we might have around. If the opportunity allows us, right?
Well, listeners, look for those links on our Inwood Artworks on-air website. Thank you again, Miguel. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, listeners, for joining Jonathan and I today on this live and local episode of Inwood Artworks On Air, where we introduce you to the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Music. It really helps. Be sure to also follow us at Inwood Artworks on our social media channels and inwoodartworks.nyc to keep up with all that we do, including the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up galleries, live performances, and so much more. And stay tuned for more live and local and artist spotlight editions of Inwood Artworks On Air. A very special thanks again to 809 Restaurant and Lounge here at 112 Dyckman Street in Inwood for hosting us. Inwood Artworks supports local small businesses, and we hope you do as well. Inwood Artworks On Air is made possible with funds from the NISCA Electronic Media and Film Grant Program in partnership with Wave Farm Media Arts Assistance Fund and the support of Governor Andrew Cuomo and the New York State Legislature. Thank you for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims.
I'm Jonathan Bell.
For Inwood Artworks On Air.